before anything in your life can truly change. Your habits, your results, your relationships, your finances, your sense of peace, your sense of power. One thing has to shift at the deepest level: who you believe you are. That's the root. That's the foundation. That's the force that drives every decision, every pattern, every reaction, every dream you allow yourself to chase or choose to abandon. People think transformation begins with discipline or motivation or strategy, but the truth is none of that lasts unless the identity underneath it supports it. If you see yourself as someone who is inconsistent, you will sabotage anything that requires consistency. If you see yourself as someone who is not worthy, you will push away every opportunity that tries to enter your life. If you see yourself as someone who always struggles, you will unconsciously recreate struggle even when the path is clear. If you see yourself as someone who is average, you will never step into the version of yourself that was born to be extraordinary. Identity drives behavior. Behavior drives results. Results reinforce identity. That's the loop. And most people live their entire lives inside the same loop, repeating the same emotional patterns, the same setbacks, the same stories without ever realizing that the prison walls were built inside their own mind. But here's the good news. The moment you challenge the identity you've been living inside, the moment you break the pattern of who you think you are, everything becomes available to you. Not someday, not eventually, immediately, because the greatest shifts happen the instant you decide that the old version of you no longer gets to run the show. But you've been conditioned for years, by experiences, by family, by failures, by mistakes, by the world around you, to believe certain things about yourself. Some of those beliefs were formed when you were young, some were formed during moments of pain, some during moments of fear, and some during moments where life knocked you harder than you expected. Those beliefs became identity, and identity became your comfort zone. So when you try to change your life without changing your identity, you're fighting against your own subconscious programming. You're basically pressing the accelerator while the parking brake is still on, and you wonder why you feel stuck. You wonder why things don't last. You wonder why you keep falling back into old patterns. It's not because you're weak. It's because you're still identifying with the person who created those patterns. If you want a breakthrough, you don't start with the pattern. You start with the person. You don't start with the habit. You start with the identity behind it. You don't start with the goal, you start with the standards that make that goal inevitable. When your identity shifts, everything else obeys. Think about it. If you believe you are someone who takes powerful action, you take powerful action. If you believe you are someone who keeps commitments, you keep commitments. If you believe you are someone who deserves happiness, you pursue happiness. If you believe you are someone who always finds a way, you find a way. Your identity determines what you allow yourself to experience. But to shift identity, you have to do something most people avoid. You have to confront the story you've been telling yourself about who you are. Because every identity, no matter how limiting, comes with a story. Maybe you've been telling yourself that you're not good enough, not smart enough, not disciplined enough, that life has always been hard for you, that things never work out, that you always lose, that you always fail, that you don't have what it takes, that you should shrink, settle, or stay quiet. These stories feel real because they were formed during real moments. A heartbreak, a failure, a betrayal, a disappointment, a moment where you needed someone and they weren't there. A moment where you tried and it didn't work. A moment where you felt small, unseen, unsupported, or unworthy. Those experiences create emotional scars, and those scars become identity. But you are not your scars. You are not your past. You are not your fear. You are not the version of yourself that life conditioned you to be. You are the version you decide to become now. Identity is a choice, not a sentence. Identity is created, not inherited. And the moment you decide to reinvent yourself, not gradually, not casually, but fully, you break the chains of who you used to be. But let's go deeper, because identity isn't just what you say, it's what you practice, it's what you tolerate, it's what you repeat, it's what you accept. It's the emotional home you return to even when life is calm. Some people return to stress, some to anger, some to fear, some to doubt, some to hopelessness, not because they want to, but because it's familiar. Because it's who they believe they are at their core. And the most dangerous thing in life is not being unhappy, it's being comfortable in the unhappiness you've learned to live with. So how do you shift identity? You shift your emotional home. You shift what you tolerate. You shift what you believe you deserve. You shift what you stand for. You shift the meaning you give to your past and the meaning you give to your future. Identity changes the moment you decide, I am done being this version of me. The mistake people make is waiting to feel ready before they act. But identity doesn't grow from readiness. Readiness grows from identity. You become ready because you step into the version of yourself who doesn't wait for perfect circumstances. The moment you act like the strongest, most confident, most disciplined, most powerful version of you, your identity begins to shift. And here's the beautiful part: when identity shifts, effort decreases. Things that once felt impossible become natural. Things that once felt heavy become effortless. Things that once felt intimidating become exciting. That's the power of identity. Imagine a person who sees themselves as a runner. Do they have to force themselves to run? No, it's who they are. Imagine a person who sees themselves as a leader. Do they hesitate to make decisions? No, it's who they are. Imagine a person who sees themselves as worthy of love. Do they cling, chase, or settle? No, it's who they are. When your identity aligns with your highest self, your life begins to reflect that alignment. Effort stops feeling like a struggle. Discipline stops feeling like punishment. Growth stops feeling like an obligation. It becomes natural. It becomes enjoyable. It becomes your new normal. But identity shifts require courage, because stepping into a new version of yourself means letting go of the version that felt safe. It means leaving behind the wounds that justified your limitations. It means releasing the excuses that protected your comfort zone. It means giving up the old story, the story you've been using to define yourself for years. But here's the truth. You can't rewrite your future while clinging to the identity of your past. You can't live a powerful life while identifying with your weakest moments. You can't create the extraordinary while holding on to the story of being ordinary. You want your life to change the source code, change the identity. When you believe you are powerful, you act powerfully. When you believe you are capable, you take bold action. When you believe you deserve more, you stop settling. When you believe you are unstoppable, obstacles shrink. Your external world begins to reflect your internal upgrades. This is not about fake confidence. This is about claiming the truth of who you were always meant to be. The version of you that life tried to bury but never defeated. The version of you that wants to rise, expand, and breathe again. The version of you that knows that settling is a slow death and growth is the only real path to freedom. Identity is destiny. Identity is the blueprint. Identity is the silent architect of your life. And the moment you choose a new identity, fully, fiercely, unapologetically, you choose a new life. Because your life doesn't change until you do.